What is up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Backup Fantasy Sports. It is Friday, April 7th. My name is Euan. On today's episode, we will be getting into some F1 fantasy with best of the backmarkers. We are in an April break right now, so wanted to get out some different content, not just race previews, but in honor of best of the backmarkers. I've got my Logan Sargent t-shirt on today, so we will definitely be discussing him. But actually, before we get into the main topic of today's video, we've got to discuss what came out overnight in the Formula One world, where we have a new sprint format on our hands for the 2023 season. All the teams agreed to this new format, starting with the Azerbaijan Grand Prix at the end of the month here. So the new schedule pretty different actually, because on Friday we've just got one free practice session, and then they're going to do the qualifying for Sunday's race. Saturday is going to be dedicated to the sprint with a qualifying and the race all in one day, and Sunday stays the same with the main race. But this is essentially eliminating free practice 2 on Saturday morning after qualifying on Friday afternoon. As I understand it, the teams wanted a more competitive session on the Saturday morning because after the qualifying on Friday, their cars were locked into the setups that they had there. So sprint qualifying offers them a little bit more chance to get more data. Hopefully, they can make some changes, but their cars on Friday, I will assume for right now, will be locked into that on Sunday. It should be interesting. There are no changes to the game as I can see right now. I'm sure there will be, as this kind of adds another qualifying. Definitely makes the 3-time DRS chip a little more interesting for Azerbaijan, or maybe the no negative chip. That's what I was thinking about playing. But if the F1 fantasy game releases some new information before my next video, I will definitely touch on that. But this came out last night. There's been rumors of it all week. So I just wanted to touch on it before I got into the rest of the video. But yeah, it's nice to see that F1 is adapting and kind of is okay making in-season changes. Maybe they will do that with their fantasy game and these prices so we can get the interest back up in this game and make it not as easy to follow as we would like here. But let's get into the main topic of today's episode. It is the best of the backmarkers. So, what are backmarkers in Formula One fantasy? Well, they are the cheapest assets in the game right now, and that will enable us to load up on stronger drivers and constructors at the top of our lineup. And right now, the meta, a lot of people have the 3 Red Bull, 3 Aston Martin setup. So we need to find the best back marker in our teams to kind of differentiate ourselves and make us shoot to the top of our mini leagues. In the picture there, I have McLaren, and they are not. They are a back marker in Formula One right now. I mean, they got some points in Australia, but they are not assets that we are looking towards in the actual game. So that's the kind of what they are in fantasy. But we what do we look for in a back marker? That's kind of what we're going to be doing today, just going through driver by driver. We want to select a driver who's going to provide us positive points each weekend. That is the main goal of this entire game. And so far in 2023, with the way that the game has decided to score points, the best back markers that we can select have been those that qualify low on Saturday and they work their way up through the field on Friday. It's kind of unfair to the Nico Hulkenbergs of the world, who have admittedly probably been the best back marker on the grid, but he is scoring some of the fewest points. So he's not a great back marker for us to look at as of right now. But who are the back markers? So I've highlighted 6 here, and we're just going to go through them real quick. We've got Yuki Tsunoda and Nick DeVries here from AlphaTauri. As you can see, I've got their prices, their qualifying points. The PGO points is points gained plus overtakes, and that's where the back markers are going to score most of their points in the game as it currently is constructed. Sonoda's best race so far was Saudi Arabia, where he scored 9 points, but he's averaging 8 points a game or 8 points per race. And that is right up there with most of the back markers. He actually finished 11th in the first 2 races, so could have gotten some more points there. And he did finish in the points in Australia after that madness occurred in the double restart. I think he was all the way up to P5 before they decided to go back to the starting order of the second of 3 red flags. First time in an F1 race that there's ever been 3 red flags. So hopefully that doesn't continue, as that was total madness at the end. Made for great entertainment, but probably not the direction that most Formula One fans want to go. Nick de Vries here, he has not been on my radar at all this year as a back marker, but he does belong in this category. 4.9 million. He doesn't have any qualifying points either. 18 points gained plus overtake points. His best race was also Bahrain. But all of his points this season have come from positions gained and overtakes. He hasn't made it to Q3 one time. He hasn't finished in the points yet. So he is just like that typical back marker that kind of works his way up through the field, gets positions gained and overtakes each weekend. Kind of steady Eddie at this point, but not very exciting. A little bit more towards the high end of the back markers. So I'm not sure if he is the best option for our teams. I would definitely take Sonoda over de Vries as of right now. Next up here, we have Alex Albon and Logan Sargent. They are two of... Albon was pretty popular before Saudi Arabia, and now he's just gone and suffered 2 DNFs back to back. So tough luck for him. He's the most expensive of the bunch here in the back markers. He has had qualifying points. He's had points gained or positions gained and overtake points, but those 2 DNFs have really sunk his season in terms of fantasy points. With he's now averaging minus 6.3 points per race. So the Saudi one was not his fault, but it seemed like Australia, he lost the rear. I believe they were saying on the commentary, and just kind of slid out on that turn 3, I believe. But he was having a really strong race. That Williams is looking way better than it has in previous seasons. So it's encouraging overall for a team. But I think right now with Albon, I'm just going to wait and see to get that reliability back up to where we thought it would be. 2 DNS back to back, though, like real killer for a lot of people's fantasy teams that had the budget to get to Albon. I remember before Australia, not a lot of us could get up to Albon because we'd suffered with going with Sargent, and he lost some money in Saudi Arabia. So we couldn't get up to Albon, and it kind of turned out to be okay for us. A little bit lucky there, as I think I would have gotten to Albon in Australia, and I would have felt really good on Saturday morning after qualifying, but not as great on Sunday afternoon after the race. And here's his other Williams teammate, Logan Sargent. Just pop the shirt one more time. The cheapest asset in the F1 fantasy game right now. He does have -5 qualifying points, as he did not classify in the Saudi Arabia qualifying because he did not set a time. He got one of his times deleted for crossing the pit lane line too early, I believe. But he's getting those points, positions gained and overtake points. His best race was also Bahrain. He was looking pretty good in Australia as well, but he locked up at the second red flag, and he actually took out Nick de Vries as well. Didn't get the DNF points, the -20, because they did complete 90% of the race. I saw that question being asked a lot on the F1 Fantasy Reddit, on the F1 Fantasy Tools and F1 Fantasy Tracker Discords, and everyone was kind of confused, but we figured it out, and yeah, they made 90% of the race, so they don't get the DNF. They don't get the -20 points. The first 4 of the back markers here are 2 from each of AlphaTauri and Williams, but the final 2 here are 1 from each team. We've got Nico Hulkenberg here, 4.1 million. He's had some qualifying points, but the problem is he is suffering from the scoring format of this game because he's probably been the best driver, like I was saying, out of these 6, but he will qualify high and finish low, and that is exactly not what we want. As you see there, he's got the 3rd fewest overtakes per race at 2.3, and he's only averaging 3.7 points per race. But Australia was his best race. It was his strongest race by far. He was another one that suffered, like Yuki Tsunoda, from them going back to the starting order of the 2nd red flag, because he was actually in P4 after all that madness. So it could have been a crazy good day for the Haas team and Hulkenberg, but it just didn't work out that way, unfortunately. So yeah, Hulkenberg probably the strongest of the 6 drivers here, but not in terms of fantasy, which is where the game seems a little bit iffy. Like, we should be rewarding the best drivers with the most points, but we will adjust and kind of figure out how to work with those scoring changes. And here is the final guy here, Zhou Guanyu, 4.9 million, still no qualifying points, but he's got 24 position gained and overtake points. His best race is both Bahrain and Australia with 15 points. He is actually averaging the 6th most points per race in the game, ahead of Charles Leclerc, which is pretty exciting to see there. 4.9 million. He's right there with Tsunoda as in that little, like, right below Albon gap. And he's probably the favorite backmarker at this point. He actually had the fastest lap in Bahrain as well. So that's boosted his points up a little bit. He got 10 points in Bahrain for that. So, but he's been steady going through, like averaging 12 points per race. Definitely in our minds as a backmarker. I know a couple of teams have, like, they haven't made any changes to their team since they went 3 times Red Bull, 3 times Aston Martin, and they just started with Zhou Guanyu. I actually did that. I started Zhou Guanyu in the first race of the season at Bahrain, and then I was like, I need to use my transfer. So I went to Logan Sargent, and that was a mistake. I should have just stuck with Zhou Guanyu because he's been the most consistent of these back markers in terms of fantasy points. So how are the back markers doing? Let me take this banner away real quick. Apologies if it's a little difficult to see. I did try to make it as big as possible, but this is just following everyone's points per race. If you can't figure it out yet, that yellow line there, that is Alex Albon, as he has had 2 DNFs in a row. But the green is Zhou Guanyu. You can see he's led 2 of these 3 races in terms of the 6 back markers. Hulkenberg's been right there, not scoring. He got a -1 in Bahrain, and he just isn't scoring as many points. But the other 3, 4 guys have been pretty consistently scoring lower points. But Zhou Guanyu is certainly up there. And hopefully this next table will be a little bit easier to see. So I've just broken it down here. Qualifying points, positions gained and overtake points, total points, and points per million. Hoping my math on the points per million is correct there. We will see, but this is kind of just breaking it down into a few categories to see who is leading where. Albon's got the most qualifying points here. He finished 8th in the qualifying in Australia. Positions gained, overtake points. Got Zhou Guanyu right here with Yuki Tsunoda and Logan Sargent, all up there in the 20s. So that's encouraging for the American driver, but he has the -5 points for qualifying. So only 18 total points, still providing us over 1 point per million spent per race. So that's encouraging. But you can see here that Zhou Guanyu is the best bang for your buck driver. As of right now, he's getting the most points. He's not even the most expensive driver among these 6. So he is certainly the one that we want. And yeah, here is how I would. So who is the best of the back markers? Here are my top 3 choices. First choice is Zhou Guanyu. He's got the most points. He's got the most positions gained and overtake points. And like I just showed you in that previous slide, he is the best bang for your buck. Second choice here is going to be Yuki Tsunoda. 3 top 11 finishes in the first 3 races. So He's actually driving really well. Just some of his results haven't gotten him into the drivers' point standings and costing him a couple of points in fantasy here, but he's uh he's actually scored more positions gained and overtake points than Joe in 2 of the 3 races. Joe just got him in one of those in the middle there. And third choice is Logan Sargent, mostly because he's more reliable than Albon right now. I do like how that Williams car is driving, and he is the cheapest asset on the grid. So certainly something to consider moving forward. Like, I don't think we all need to save that much money. I think we can all get up to Joe Guan Yu's. So it really comes down to Joe or Yuki Tsunoda here for me. I have Logan Sargent in my team. I will be getting him out by the time Azerbaijan rolls around at the end of the month, as we are still a couple of weeks away from that going down. But that's going to do it for this episode of Backup Fantasy Sports. Just a quick little check-in. Best of the Backmarkers wanted to get out some different type of content before the race preview will come out in a couple of weeks' time. I hope you are enjoying the break. It'll be interesting to see what everyone thinks of the sprint format. You can comment below what you think is your best of the backmarkers. Do you agree with my rankings of Joe, Yuki, and Logan? Do you disagree? Am I an idiot? Let me know in the comments below. But while you are doing that, if you could like and subscribe to this YouTube channel or the podcast whenever this goes up on the audio side, I would really appreciate it. But hoping to get out one more video before I do the Azerbaijan Grand Prix video. And yeah, it should be an interesting time. I'm looking forward to reading the reactions to this new sprint format over the weekend. But once again, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching, and I will talk to you next time.